Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Hinzman, and tonight I'd like to share some thoughts regarding the importance of narrative, or in lay terms, storytelling in adult education. This theme was first inspired by Daniel Pink's work, A Shift of Mind. He included story as a critical cog of right-brained thinking, which planted a seed of intrigue that I hope will flow well into my major research for ALOP. Also, as of last month, all my grandparents have passed. Their stories somewhat remain in artifacts left behind, but I really grieve that their first-hand accounts of their lives are beyond my grasp now. No one told stories so much as my grandmother Fern, rendered here, who had a captivating gift for narration. I suppose you can say my affinity for the topic is genetic. Stories have served as teaching tools probably since cognition was a function of living. These morality tales were initially shared via oral tradition and served to inform human behavior. Religious texts, Aesop's fables. The Boy Who Cried Wolf was often told to me by my father for entertainment, and as an adult I consider truthfulness to be my ultimate value. So what makes a good narrative? Stories, in any expression, usually have a beginning, middle, and end, following a dramatic arc. Many include a lesson for the audience. Everyone has a story to tell, and the act of doing so ripens the learning environment. Constructing stories, it has been said, is the chief method by which people make sense of their lives. The ability to narrate transcends demographic status. When assuming the role of the narrator, one must objectively testify. It is the listener's role to apply meaning to the narrative. And yes, the narrator and the listener can be one and the same, but in this case one must first construct the narrative, then contextualize, and finally reconstruct. Narrative learning is among the newer realms of adult learning. It is rising in importance and research volume because one of the definitive qualities of the human psyche is the ability to process, narrate, adapt, and reconstruct our experience via storytelling. Through this, we learn our most important personal lessons and can engage the possibility of social change. The story structure known as the hero's journey is a metaphor for the power of narrative in life's most uncertain moments. Essentially, the hero is called to go forth and is subjected to a series of stumbling blocks, including their own self-doubt, receive aid at key points en route, and ultimately overcome, fulfilling their physical and personal journey. Narrative learning is considered as constructionist learning, perhaps because the exploration of narrative allows the learner to examine their walls, tear them down, and rebuild. Empowerment lies in the individual's conscious choice. Narratives are made up of our willful forays, but they also include the shadows of every venture not pursued. Like so many forms of learning, inquiry is a key element of the method. A learner must choose to make sense of their world through narrative. In the inquisitive process, there is a reciprocal relationship between singular narratives and the mass of the collective. The collective influences the individual, and the individual narratives diversify the collective. There is a method to learning from a narrative that resembles the popular educational adage, see one, do one, teach one. The cyclical process begins with perception of a narrative. That narrative is interpreted through discourse and self-talk until meaning is applied. Lastly, the reconstructive narrative is shared with another who begins the process again. In transformational learning, there is a concept of multiple selves. My current selves would include daughter, student, earner, and creator. This may sound familiar. Each self has its own narrative, and it is up to me, through willful interpretation, to harmonize my selves, despite the chaos and compartmentalization inherent in the process. Reflection is a popular term that describes a structured opportunity to debrief one's experiences and understand one's context of living. Reflection is a fundamentally social act. There must be an engagement in order for narrative learning to occur. Said R.L. Hopkins, our narratives are the means through which we imagine ourselves into the persons we become. In this course, all of us have shared a narrative in order to vet their understanding of the topic at hand. Educators that intentionally utilize narrative as a teaching strategy are positioned to initiate transforming change among their learners. The important concern is, if this is an appropriate strategy, how is it carried out methodically and effectively? The greatest challenge of narrative learning would be the matter of how to interpret stories as practical data in research. This is the primary reason why cognitive scientists reject the theory as little more than a feel-good activity. Also, this learning method can promote subjectivity for both the teller and the listener and is easily decontextualized. Beyond academia, Narratives serve to rehabilitate, too. Shakespeare's tales have gained popularity as an educational tool within the walls of U.S. prisons. Using Hamlet, a violent tale of vengeance, adults who have trod that road analyze this tale and imbue it with their narrative. This promotes new awareness, sensitivity, and for some, personal atonement. Adults are constantly pursuing narrative, purposefully or no, to seek validation. Toward the predicted end of life, adults grasp their narrative in an attempt to make sense of their death. Dignity therapy is a concept of intentional storytelling that allows a dying person to capture some of their narrative in a medium that will last in order to ease their anxieties. Just this week, Facebook rolled out its new profile layout, the timeline, in order to facilitate a more accurate picture of the most important moments of a user's life. The timeline intends to capture an accurate narrative of the user's whole experience with Facebook, rather than a chronological collection of the benign daily goings-on. The only way one can effectively describe history is with narrative. Only narrative allows one removed from its first hand to step into the story, absorb its meaning, and draw conclusions by marrying their narrative with that of history's. Narrative can animate the inanimate. One muses what events this lady has seen and what lessons she might tell. Among Daniel Pink's portfolio of exercises for developing storytelling chops was to participate in StoryCorps, an organization dedicated to collecting the voice of the every person. People are encouraged to record a bit of their story for posterity and archival in the Library of Congress. It is with a similar suggestion that I conclude. Acknowledge your stories, share them, and let them be your guide. Embrace your storied narrative to enhance your education. Most of us came here not only for a degree, but for a life-transforming experience as well. Purposefully pull a volume from your intrinsic library and allow the narrative to lead you where it will. Thank you.